sure it meets our definition.
We just submit our plans to.
That speaker, hopefully they can hear you.
They bring in NEPA and.
Maybe that
Corps of
speaker
Engineers
works.
after that.
Okay.
I don't know who's talked to at FEMA. Do you have anybody who's got that kind of authority?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna.
FEMA's
I was
only
gonna-
one of
I was gonna
four
reach out
gods
to
who we
him.
have to please, so that
Oh, okay.
they're not the lead.
Well, I was gonna reach out to him and see if he had a name.
Mhm.
Because I figure if we're gonna be an engineer, if we have to get two other more staff.
Yeah, I used to know the guys at the Corps of Engineers office in LA, that's who's in charge of us.
I haven't kept up with them anymore.
Okay.
Danny, if you can hear us, give us a sign.
Next month.
No. Yeah, Danny, not Dana.
The cameras are live.
Okay, we're good.
We're good?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Call meeting to order, and Shelley can do roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. District 1, Councilman Rios.
Here.
District 2, Councilman Pastor.
Present.
District 3, Councilman Leatham.
Present.
District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilman Gonzalez.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley.
Here.
Mayor Gameros.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you, Shelley. Shelley, can you lead us in the
Yes,
invocation?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Okay, join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we thank you for this evening. Thank you for your protection and your guidance. We pray that you bless this meeting and the council as they make decisions for this community, that they may be purposeful and intentional to serve the residents. Please bless city staff and protect them, Lord, as they serve and protect. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Fernando, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
I.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with summary of current events. Mariano, we'll start with you down there.
I've got nothing, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mariano. Fernando?
If I do, I don't remember it, so. Okay.
All right. Freddie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let the public know that I attended a Tri-City Sanitary District meeting yesterday. It was held at the Hill County Fairgrounds. And really what it was a pre-construction meeting. So KE&G is the contractor that was awarded the first phase of this project. And they're talking about starting in another couple months. So the plant site, that's the first phase of this project. The plant site will be along 188 as you make that turn by the railroad track past Guayos. It'll be in that general area in that field. So I'm sure there's going to be more to come, but keep your eyes peeled for that new construction.
Wow.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Freddie. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Rael's left quite a stack of information about what's
Right.
going on at the library. And I think one of the key things would be that display of the Arizona Traveling Museum that will be at the Bullion Plaza Cultural Center on March 22nd. It's free, and it's actually the only stop in Gila County. So we're fortunate that Rael and Sue Pontel, I believe, got together on it and got to come to Gila County, especially Miami. So take a look at that information. I think you'll find some interesting things. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mike. Jesse?
I don't have anything, Mr. Mayor.
Mike?
I have nothing tonight.
Wow,
I know.
that's quick.
Okay.
Whoops.
Caught me off guard.
I know, sorry.
I have a couple of things. Tomorrow we'll be traveling to Payson. Governor Hobbs will be having a luncheon up there in the Payson area. So again, you know, hopefully we'll be able to discuss some of we're still working towards our FEMA declaration, which would be great if we could get that. So hopefully we'll have discussion with that. The other thing is First Friday returns on March 6th. And that's gonna be the first live, First Friday again, back to normal instead of just minimized, so. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, nothing from me tonight, thank you. Oh, no, one thing, there is one thing.
Oh, darn.
Tonight is this weekend, this Saturday is casino night for the Rotary at the old courthouse. And tickets are available everywhere, and I think you can buy them at the door. And I think it's a 1920s theme.
Wow, nice.
As a good Rotarian, I need to put my 2 cents in for our local Rotary.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have community call to the public. This is a time when anyone wishing to speak or address the council can do so. Time limit is 3 minutes. And at that time, we cannot, as council, respond to you, but we can direct staff to follow up. So I do have one call to the public. I have Joseph Goodwin. If you want to state your name and your.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Joseph Goodwin. I live in Apache Junction on 1955 West TP Street. Thank you for the opportunity, for letting me speak tonight, and for the time and service you dedicate to the City of Globe. As you know, my name is Joseph Goodwin. I am a grassroots engagement director with Citizens for Free Enterprise. In this role, I seek out and meet with small business owners, workers, and members of the community here in Globe and throughout our region. And I ask them about how policies, ordinances, and what laws impact them and what they look like on the ground. My job is to help bridge the gap between those voices and local government so that policymakers like you can all get the feedback and input you need to make the best decisions for your constituents and community. CFFE is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that was launched to protect free enterprise at the federal, state, and local level. At CFFE, we are committed to advocating for independent businesses and promoting the principles of free enterprise, equipping our local businesses with resources and information to grow and prosper, while also continuing to protect and advance our free enterprise system for future generations. CFFE wants to help connect independent businesses with lawmakers so that they can make their voices heard, and you can all receive valuable feedback in the policymaking process. For many local business owners here in Globe, their business isn't just a job, it is their livelihood. They eat, sleep, and breathe it 24/7. They're managing payroll, supply chains, customers, and rising costs, often all at the same time. And because of that, while their input on local regulations and policies is incredibly valuable, the reality is they are busy people. In many cases, they don't become aware of policy changes until after those changes are already being implemented. The most important and impactful policies affecting daily life and economic opportunity are crafted right here at the local level. And we want to help ensure that business owners, workers, and residents all feel they have a voice and a role in the process. I also want to acknowledge that Globe is still rebuilding following the devastating floods of last year. Tremendous progress has already been made, and it's clear that these things are moving in a positive direction. But at the same time, everyone recognizes there is still more work ahead. As Globe continues to recover, it's important that we keep in place policies that empower residents, encourage investment, and strengthen independent businesses that make this community proud. Thank you all again for your time, your service, and your dedication to the city. Thank you, guys.
Next, we have special presentation and ceremonial matters. And we have none. Okay. Consent calendar, matters listed on the consent calendar considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion and one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and or staff may remove any item for separate consideration also. Item A is consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. 1. Accounts payable, $207,971.74. Item B, consideration to approve change order number 1 for contract number CS 2026-0026 with Ferguson Enterprises LLC for the amount of $3,122.63 from funding account 508051251, well pump maintenance and repair. Item C, consideration to approve the fall distribution request for the Globe Miami Regional Chamber of Commerce for the first and second quarter of fiscal year 25-26 in the amount of $25,000 funded from account 10515190 General Fund Community Organization Globe Miami Regional Chamber of Commerce. Do we have anybody from the public, staff, or council wishing to remove any item for separate consideration?
Mr. Mayor, if there's no, comments on the consent agenda item, I make a motion that we approve as presented.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as read. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Item 5A is new business, and item A is a public hearing, discussion and possible direction, only no action on the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation of ordinance 894, a zoning code text amendment, update and expand the city's home occupation provisions for residential and zoning districts. Case number ZT82501. Shelley, can you read ordinance 894, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 894, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Globe, Arizona, amending the zoning code by expanding the home occupation code provisions to insert section 14-6-11 to establish use standards and to add said use to the permitted uses and uses subject to conditional use permit sections of the RL-43 Rural Zoning District, section 14-5-2B, R19 Single Family Residential District, section 14-5-3B, R1-6 Single Family Residential District, section 14-5-4B, R-2 Multifamily District, section 14-5-8B, TR Transitional Residential District, section 14-5-9B of the Globe Zoning Code, and updating the definitions, section 14-3-1 accordingly. Is council pleased with that reading?
Yes.
Yes. So in the order we'll go, I guess, before we open it, Dana will be presenting, and then we'll open the public. I think what we'll do is wait till council at the end can comment on anything that's discussed, I guess, if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just want to, before we turn it over to Dana, thank the Planning and Zoning Committee. I know they did a lot of work on this. This has been going on for several months that I understand, trying to understand it all. Again, these are a volunteer group that had a lot of questions, had a lot of concerns, and then they moved a recommendation forward to us. As we review codes, whether it's fire, building, or zoning, it's important to understand that the decisions cannot be based on one single resident, one business, or one particular area. When we make decisions, it's for the whole entire city of Globe. So what may be good in one area, in a residential area, may not be good in others. So that's why we got to be very careful and really be open-minded and understand it. But at the same time, the things, especially the first one we're going to be talking about is one of them is childcare, and that's vital. We have deficit of childcare in our community. I think it's a very important subject that we need to really look at. But there's many more that we're going through, and Dana will explain all those. And please ask questions as we move along, so as Dana's explained if we want to.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, just to reiterate, these are for the public hearings, discussion and direction only. Neither this or the other text amendment are agendized for taking action. So whatever the outcome is, both of these will have to come back, and that is give staff a chance to get your feedback and know exactly what to bring back that you want, and also it satisfies the multiple read requirements that we have.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing, or no, we'll do a presentation and then open the public hearing. I'm sorry.
Let's do Dana first.
Yep.
Dana, you there?
Thank you very much. I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you good.
Excellent. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, thank you very much for considering this or discussing this item tonight. As you mentioned, there is a little bit of history here, and I'll try and quickly summarize for you and get right to discussion. And then, as you mentioned, any zoning ordinance or rezoning zoning related ordinance change requires public hearing, and that, right after, presentation, you're, welcome to open up the public hearing, for testimony from the public. Thank you very much, again, for having this item, back, or about coming up on almost a year back, last May, there was a conditional use permit item on the Planning and Zoning Commission's agenda. And in that meeting, the topic of home occupation came up, and given it not being agendized for that discussion, Planning and Zoning Commission directed staff to bring back a discussion and conversation about the existing home occupation code, and that's how we got to today. So with that, I'll just quickly go through that background. These are prior public meetings and outreach in 2025, May 15th, that's when we did that presentation. We came back to P&Z, presented, discussed, did some research, peer code analysis and best practices, and looking at the nuances for Globe, and had a good discussion there. Came back on July 30th, really starting to dial in kind of what those critical elements of peer community codes and other best practices are, and then we received direction from the Planning Commission to move forward with preparing just a framework for a text amendment. August 15th, that draft framework was distributed for public input on social media via our couple channels there. And then on November 12th, we, P&Z, reconvened and then considered and then initiated the specific language with some modifications. And generally what you're reviewing today is close to that, or we have had some tweaks with these additional meetings that we held as of 2026. Place the advertisements that are required to notify the public of public hearings, which included a message in your water bill, in January water bill, newspaper ads, and social media posts as well for the citizen review. And then also, those advertisements included the public, Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing, this public hearing tonight, as well as the statutory required citizen review meeting that's, again, required to be held prior to any public hearing held by the city. And that was held on January 20th there in the council chambers. And a summary of all these meetings, for the most part, are in your packets under the citizen review, and then, or under the public input, and or referencing minutes of the Planning Commission and videos that are available as well. So obviously, Planning and Zoning Commission held their public hearing on February 4th and made a recommendation to City Council to adopt the proposed language with a on a 3-1 vote. And then here we are on the 24th. So it's about 8 or 9 meetings in total previously. So I just wanted to quickly just recap on that process. Our peer community home occupation code really identified some consistent criteria, regulatory criteria that municipalities place. Permitting and licensing requirements, just a note, you gotta get the right approvals to operate your home occupation. Secondly, list of permitted uses and prohibited uses, and kind of identifying, okay, this is what's allowed to be a type of business that could be operated out of a home, and this can't be. And there's some gray areas in there that we try and dissect, or make it clear what that intent is. Item number 3, maximum number of employees allowed to be on the site that are unrelated to the resident or occupants of the home. 4, limitations on the total area of the property. So we saw consistency where it's like you can't exceed a certain amount. I'll touch on a few of those peer community best practices that we saw. 5, limits on the ability to store, display, or advertise the fact that there's a business activity going on there. And then 6, limits on increases to the traffic and parking that's not customary to a single family residence or neighborhood. That's probably one of the more critical components outside of having a visible advertisement that it's a business or the property, a single family home in a neighborhood, residential district. district starting to take an appearance of a business, that traffic and that demand for traffic, obviously, is an important criteria to consider. And then finally, all codes will identify the nuisances, that are prohibited by the city and requires compliance to other city codes. And stop me at any point if you have any questions on this. Like I said, all of that should be pretty quick here, no more than about 10 more minutes. Just real quick highlights. I just pulled this old slide off of from one of those earlier peer community discussions with P&Z Commission. Hewlett County, go figure. We have a very mirrored code, probably adopted it from the county. Only difference I saw was 200 square foot, where our current home occupation definition / code allows 400. Superior, no more than 25%, and that's 25% gross area. Floor area is pretty consistent across the board of most community survey best practices. Apache Junction allows up to 10 related, and these are kind of the nuance that we found amongst the community codes. Everything else very similar. Apache Junction will allow up to 10 related vehicles per day to the business between certain hours with a parking allowance or requiring parking, and 25% of the home or 200 square foot max detached area could be used for the home occupation business and would be required to be indoors. And for the most part, they all require the activity to be indoors. Gilbert, one full-time equivalent employee, not generate vehicle or truck traffic in greater volume than normally expected in a residential district or to a single-family home in which the home occupation is located. And then finally, Payson had a really robust home occupation code. The commission was not interested to get on that road. Basically, they created tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, based on the location of the home. Is it accessible off of directly from a large collector road or an arterial, some area that might have more commercial character to it. So, yeah, it was interesting, but it was definitely probably a much larger, broad brush to apply home occupation requirements as it would be pertaining to the globe. So overall, Planning and Zoning Commission determined the #1 goals were to encourage business activities to expand the economy, providing services without impacting the surrounding neighborhood, and preserve the peaceful enjoyment of residents' properties. Secondly, maintain and not alter the character of residential neighborhoods, protect against potential nuisances of business activities such as noise, vibration, fumes, dust, odors, off-site parking, and traffic. And then finally, definitely maintain public safety in the residential setting. We want to make sure that obviously whatever activities there is safe for our neighborhood. So we're just jumping right in. I know you probably received a Word document attempt for language comparison that probably didn't show you very much. And this, I don't know if you have the pleasure of reviewing this, but I basically took both ordinances, existing ordinances, placed them side by side, and then color coded the relative criteria. As we just discussed, there's a generally accepted amount of criteria that is looked at in considering home occupation and codes that address them. So in the yellow to start, and I'll just quickly run through these. This identifies what uses are currently allowed. Dwelling as a secondary use, or as a secondary use, you're allowed home occupation, including professional and semi-professional offices. That's the full extent of the permissions for allowed uses in our current code. The proposed on the right-hand side kind of expands on that, similar to our zoning districts. Have listed permitted uses and listed prohibited uses. So you see that expansion, how we need, more language in there to help identify a lot of the type of home occupations that we have been approving. All fall within this area. They all wouldn't be in the area on the proposed code. However, not all would be considered a professional or semi-professional office. I have some experience in this area, and in that criteria that we discussed previously and how to effectively apply that and administer that. So overall, I would say in the last 5 years, I've probably denied maybe 5, maybe 1 year at best. And one of which was part of that discussion of the use permit that's down to this revised code proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Secondly, in the yellow, when conducted and entered from within the dwelling is what our current code says as well, no more than 1/4 of the floor area of 1 story of the main building or a detached home workshop of not more than 400 square feet in area can be used. Over the proposed language is very similar in that it just says 1/4 of the total floor area of the principal building and any outbuilding or accessory building on the lot. In orange, there could be no sales, stock, and trade, and that's one of the critical components you'll see across the board. You don't want that retail activity in the neighborhood. That's when we start getting phone calls of complaints of business activity. And here in the proposed language, item number G, merchandise, walk-in customers and on-site sales of merchandise or goods shall not be permitted.
Go ahead, Fernando. We got a question, Dana.
Then I got a question. So when I read the state guidelines on the childcare, it said that you had to allow 30 square foot per child. But you're saying you can go up to 10 or 12. So are we still okay with the 400? Is that how we came up to 400?
And we don't necessarily need to apply strictly state, and daycare is a nuance in this, and I've got a specific discussion on that next. Great point. When you see that language, what we have maybe area does not include, and I think certain state requirements also require outdoor play area or some sort of, so we'll get into that. But to your point, as it's currently written with, for the statutes, any daycare of 4 or less, don't require any permitting from us, as it's proposed. So in that situation, obviously they'd be well underneath that threshold. More than 4 would require a use permit. It's how it's proposed. Like I said, we'll get into that detail next, but I'm happy to close up that part of this conversation for now.
Okay.
If you have any other question on that.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, we haven't got to that yet. Okay. Jesse, you have a question? Wait, Dan, I got another question.
Dan, you said that at a certain point, I can't remember the exact verbiage you used, but you said at a certain point that's when we start getting phone calls and complaints. Based off of the existing code, can you tell me, has there been complaints and phone calls to suggest that's when we get phone calls and complaints, or just based off of your knowledge in other cities and towns that you've seen phone calls and complaints related to that?
I've had a few. One was a garage sale that continually operated in the community, and the neighbors were upset with that. That's the one that really stands out. In automotive repair, we got complaints of why do they always have a car over there or it's always on blocks and they're working on it. And there's others that are coming in. So that's the bulk of the complaints off the top of my head that I can think of.
Okay, thank you.
And then, yeah, definitely with other communities too. Yeah. No more than, in the blue, no more than 1 non-resident is what our current code allows. The proposed code allows no more than 2 persons shall be employed or work on site, excepting the occupants. So people driving to the site to work. So we double that. And then also with approval of conditional use permit, we would be allowed additional employees. In the gray, provided that the residential character of the dwelling is not changed, again, that's a consistent language. Item A, kind of on the onset of the home occupation discussion, we identify what the goals are of a home occupation to not change the character of the property or the neighborhood. And this lighter orange does not cause any sustained, unpleasant, noise, vibrations, or noxious fumes or odors, so nuisances. And again, every code has that, every home occupation code will have that. And it's here on item J, which just expands a little bit in a little more detail, but all says the same thing for the most part. And then it does apply, provide the opportunity if there is certain motors running or something like that, that it would be necessary for the home occupation, that home business could apply for a conditional use permit to allow it to operate. And then that, the city planning and zoning commission consider, is this gonna be allowed, how is it being operated, is this in a manner, and then we regulate, and then be able to keep an eye on it as it moves forward, make sure that, you know, it isn't creating problems for the neighbors in the neighborhood. In green, or cause any parking or traffic congestion in the immediate neighborhood is what our current code states, and then that's just expanded a little bit. Now, and why that's expanded, or cause any parking or traffic congestion in the immediate neighborhood, that gets a little subjective to the courts, and doesn't give you a lot of teeth if there is a problem. And keep in mind, any code, I'm not familiar with many, if any, code compliance issues with home occupations in the city, but it's strictly on a complaint base. We're not looking for problems. I'm not aware of anybody in staff looking for home occupation issues to complain on. It's a proactive complaint code enforcement scenario that we entertain right now.
Dana, I have a question.
Yes.
On the parking, okay, or when, and again, I guess you'll get into this too later on in the daycare or whatever. When they leave people off, it's only temporary, but if they're doing instructional classes, they're there permanently. So is it up to the individual doing the business there, whether it's daycare or whatever, advising their clients about the parking situations and the safety of the kids? Or is it the city get involved with that?
Two different things there. So what you just, if it's a daycare that has instruction, that's a daycare. They just happen to give instruction. Our instructional classes provision is actually the impetus for this whole review of our home occupation code. Somebody wanted a swim school or swim classes at their house. And that, based on the existing code, I think we could all agree, there is nothing really that points to allowing something like that. And so it's that, so to your point, it's more of that rotation of class attendees, right? If it's an hour or 2 hour or 3 hour class or something like that, of cars, people driving to a yoga, Pilates, or other instructional type of program of a group, that's what item 6 here, instructional class is intended to address. With regards to daycare, now they're being dropped off in the morning, they're picked up in the afternoon. Maybe two different, 3 different schedules, you know, 4 hour increments or something like that throughout the day. So you have that traffic coming and doing that drop off, you know, in that regular kind of cadence. Versus these groups of people coming in for a class and needing parking. Now, like you mentioned, daycare's a drop off, so parking's not a big issue.
Yep.
We don't really ask. If they got employees, we have to show that you have your 2 on your property for your residents. And then if you got an employee, show where you park in the 3rd car on site, don't put it in the street. That's what we're trying to avoid. Does that answer your question?
Yes. You got it.
And then finally.
Okay, one more, Dana.
Dana,
Okay,
with
go
your
ahead.
traffic and parking, you state that there's no more than 5 additional daily trips. That could, a delivery driver could go over 5 additional trips a day to one location. Say, take DoorDash, Grubhub, Instacart. Take my house, for instance. That DoorDash driver is there about 10 times a day. I mean, so that has gone over now that 5 daily limit. So how do you enforce that, and why would we enforce that? I mean, as long as it's not causing a nuance to any neighborhood, why would we put that in there?
It doesn't sound like in your situation that that's related to a business activity. And I mentioned just previously, just saying we don't, traffic is where we start to get the calls, and parking in the street, and parking in places where they park cars should. If you don't have that in there, your current language is, or cause any parking or traffic congestion in the immediate neighborhood, again, that's very subjective. You can't monetize that, or you can't, right, you can't show a judge, well, they've got 20 cars parking throughout the day, every day, over this location. Does that cause congestion though in the immediate neighborhood? That's all subjective criteria. We want more specific criteria should an issue arise. Like I said, we don't want to go out and police it. It's when somebody complains and says, what's going on over here? And then we have to go out and keep an eye on it and say, oh, okay, what's going on? But agreed, everybody, there's delivery trucks all day long, so many residents. If it's not business, it doesn't matter, right?
When I get my, to that fact, I get my stuff for my business delivered to my house because I'm not always at the business. So I'll get it delivered to my house. So that again goes over the 5 daily limit. It's enforceable on paper. It's understandable that you can enforce this on paper, but in reality, to enforce this 5 daily trips, we don't have the manpower to sit outside. Say there was 10 complaints. Now that person has to go and do that. So that's where I just don't want us to box ourselves into that. And I guess we can discuss that further whenever we open it up, but just where I'm standing right now.
Yep, but that traffic and that congestion, that's a potential increased opportunity for traffic incidents in a neighborhood. And let's say maybe you're really close to a arterial or a collector street where it can hold that higher volume. Great, but if you're way back in one of the canyons or at a dead end, that type of volume could become a problem for a lot of the neighbors that also access that single way. So, just gotta look at the margins and what, and wonder what's rational. We do know, just from best practices, that obviously trips per day and traffic and parking is one of the bigger reasons you'll get a complaint.
Sure.
From a home-based business. And if you don't have any way to count that, then, so yeah, we can discuss that further. And then finally, no signs may be erected or maintained, and that's consistent with most codes. In purple there, and we have that same provision as proposed. Now, as far as the applicability of the state home occupation code, it doesn't say what district is allowed. We assume residential, right? So that's how we've been applying it. But other than that, there's only 3 areas of the existing code that the words home occupation come up. And that is under the manufactured home subdivision district. They identified as permitted and prohibited home occupation uses. And then in our parking, loading, and access requirement standards, which we'll be discussing in the next agenda item. Storage of commercial vehicles in residential zones, if they're related to home occupation, is in there. And then finally, medical marijuana related facilities are not permitted as a home occupation. So those are the only points of discussion where that's identified, and that's concerning. We want every residential district to have an allowed home occupation use, right? So the proposed language you have here at the bottom, that flows into the bottom of this graphic, is proposed zoning district applicability of all residential districts. Right now, only R143 actually identifies it, and you don't have any R143 as acre lot. I'm sorry, it doesn't allow it. That's the one that discusses childcare. So that's a whole other topic. So first of all, so we can hop into childcare and we can just go back and forth and discuss and move on from that.
Is there
any questions on these details?
Is there any questions to anything, but I think it's item 5 and 6, I guess, because we haven't discussed 5 and 6. Any questions on that?
Mr. Mayor and everyone in the room, I have, District 5 has a lot of talented people. You name it, they do it. If they're talented, they probably are making a buck at it, to be honest, and this is in residential neighborhoods. So I have discussions and I've heard things regarding under prohibited uses. Not concerns, but just be aware, we've got people under 3, 4, and 5 that may be conducting business as a talent or a passion. And I worry about too much oversight and striking a balance between, what's our balance going to be? Are we going to let home-based business in those areas occur? Are we going to hunt them down? I'm not being radical. I'm just saying we've created an opening there for regulation. And so there's got to be a balance between someone talented and pursuing their talent, whatever it may be, and balancing that of the needs of the neighborhood. And as you said, Dana, there's not a whole lot of public complaint about some things over the years. I get that. But I'm trying to strike that balance. What's an issue to the neighborhood under 3, 4, and 5? What's not? I just am trying to be fair. I don't want to make our residents feel like they have to keep it under wraps, because I might have the regulation police coming after me. You see what I'm getting at?
Absolutely.
We follow our talents. I'm a musician. I practice at home. If I have a band rehearsing, we keep it low and keep it in the garage, or everybody wears headphones, as an example. So we're trying not to disturb the peace. So there's a lot of talented people in Globe, and they're pursuing their interests. And I just don't want them to feel that, oh, I can't do this, or I have to work around it, and keep the spirit of the community or the neighborhood in mind. And that's all I want to say about that issue. I'm done, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Excellent. And Mayor, Councilman, that is a great point. Let's talk about item number 3, 4, and 5, the prohibited uses. Item number 3, the repair, reconditioning, servicing, or manufacture of any motor vehicle, including automobiles, trucks, motorcycles, and boats. And that, again, this is a business, not a hobby. That's probably one of the most commonly prohibited activities from a single-family lot or on a residential lot. Certainly, I think if you want to explore allowing that as a business, we look at criteria like, where is this work being done? Is it in the garage? Are yards being kept? Are parts in the yard? Or, you would definitely want to put together a clear list of criteria, because that is one of probably the number one complaints, like I said, for
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Item number 4, drop off, repair, fix it, or plumbing shops. That's a little weird. It's kind of similar to the prohibited or the permitted uses of like number 3 and 4, dressmaking, handicrafts. We could probably expand or say, okay, again, if you're, can 20 people a day go drop something off and pick something up at a home? That's what you want to consider, and this is why we have the criteria that Councilman Latham mentioned regarding 5 lot cars. Like, how do you start to, at what point do you say, okay, that's a lot of traffic, you should probably go get brick and mortar or do this someplace else.
Yeah.
But, so that, again, that trips, that's just like selling. If they're selling something, okay, at what point do we want to establish some criteria that's enforceable? Subjective language, like our current language, isn't very enforceable. If push comes to shove, it's going to have a hard time in court possibly without being able to be definitive on what's going on, what that actual activity is, and where it violates a code. So yeah, I agree. There could be some. We could expand some of those activities. Just know what is the expectation for trips per day. Again, this is by right, so if it's back, or you could do it by conditional use permit if they want to do that. That way you can see where they're at. Are they at the end of a long, small, undersized roadway? Or are they accessible off of collectors? Stuff like that, I think, would be worth discussing if you want to consider, that and allowing. And then kennels, storage, carrying, grooming, that's just always been one of those items because of the dog barking for the most part, and then the fact that they need to go outside. At times, okay, how many animals, right? How do you start to regulate that? Most As a matter of fact, even in commercial districts, many communities will say, if it's a veterinary with overnight stay or kenneling, they require use permits because of that potential for nuisance.
Okay.
So that's my take on those three items, and happy to continue to explore sleep on it as well.
Dana, in the old code, those weren't covered. It was just the one paragraph that we saw, that we're seeing home occupation.
That's it.
They weren't broke
And
down.
particularly in the yellow is the only thing that's allowed
We
right
never
now.
had an exhaustive list, Mayor.
What's that?
And that's
Professional.
that's been one of my biggest concerns with this new policy that they want to go in is we're boxing ourselves and future council into this box. And this council has ran on economic diversity and economic resilience, and to say that this is the exhaustive list and this is it, and the zoning administrator has policy making authority to say yes or no versus this body, we're gonna just be back here in 6 months. Another council will be back here again. Then we're having conditional use creep, where everybody has to have a conditional use, and there's nothing that says this is an exhaustive list. That this is not an exhaustive list. I understand the keeping a neighborhood, and keeping true to that, but using that language in there and allowing our residents to start something and grow something from their home to become a brick and mortar. That's what we've all sat here and said over and over and over again. I mean, that's what we're making a downtown incubator for.
That's it.
And
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, that's what we've done over and over again. I firmly applaud everybody's time that it's taken to do this, but I think it's just boxing us in and leaving it to a lot of no's versus yes.
I have,
That's where I'm at.
yeah, I have a comment on 1, 2, and 5. I mean, firearms and manufacturing, I understand that totally.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also individuals in the community that are hunters that do their own loading. And do we want to we don't want to oversight that either. So I can see manufacturing of firearms and storage would be a hazard to the residential area.
None of this impacts hobbyists. None of this impacts somebody that's helping their neighbor with a repair a car, or they're helping their family member, or they're helping their fellow hunter.
get that.
They're doing this. These are for-profit businesses. These are people who in the future, like you say, should be in a brick and mortar, and hopefully they're working their way towards that. But all of these prohibited ones focus on again the balance of protecting the neighborhood and the look feel. Do you want somebody hammering out ball joints at 10 o'clock at night? Do you want somebody storing massive quantities of ammunition because they're selling 100 boxes of 100 in your neighborhood?
How are you going to say that's a hobby versus a business? Who gets to say that? And when do you get to? And when do you get to say that? And when do we become impact-based zoning versus permission-based zoning? I mean, now we're going into permission-based zoning and getting really into the weeds with, again, a policy that is just so convoluted versus this policy that's there and just giving it a little bit more. We've now said, no, you can't do this. We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this. But we're allowing these things. And I mean, it goes back to the tamale guy. Out of the trunk of his car, we all had an issue with the tamale guy. Don't go after the tamale guy. And I mean, so is that a hobbyist or is that for business? And when does it become that?
So if a hobbyist does it for the love of the hobby, a business person does the work to be compensated. And I'm just pointing out to the mayor that your example of a couple hunters getting together is not what we're enforcing, is not what we're after. We're after someone who's opening up a shop, who has a license to deal firearms, and who is dealing out of the garage of a house where kids play and the neighborhood is trying to be there. Now, I just wanted to, this is a tough issue, and I appreciate everybody what they're saying, but I just wanted to make sure that we narrow the focus for business reasons and not hobbyists. And I guess I'll leave it at that. But I totally get what you're saying about Authority Council versus.
The medical marijuana dispensaries too, we had a large issue with that, and I agree with that, you know, putting in a residential area. Look at what we've gone through with the one that was put up at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
And the odors and all the stuff that has gone up there, and that has really caused an issue with all the neighbors above that place.
Right.
I mean, it's shut down now, but it caused a lot of issues in that neighborhood because of the smell from that manufacturing dispensary. And that shouldn't have been put in a residential area.
Yeah, first off, it shouldn't have never been there.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mike.
I really have trouble with number 3. I know several gentlemen around town who are retired from the mines that, they learned their craft at the mines and everything, and they do services to the public, upholstery and some small auto repair and stuff like that. And I just can't see us penalizing them because they're not making a bundle.
Yeah.
They're
Team Green would like to do it.
You know, it's more of a pleasure for them to do it. Granted, they probably get paid, they do get paid for some of the work they do. But it's not a humongous business, it's just a corner.
They're never gonna get a brick and mortar.
No.
No, they're retired, they're just doing
Yeah.
it.
And so, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Pastor, and so then that's why Dana's talking about drilling down and saying, okay, you know, can I pound ball joints out at midnight in a neighborhood? I mean, that, if you're disrupting.
That says decibels.
What's that?
We have a noise ordinance that reads that decibels.
So I think that if you want to go in that direction, then you say, okay, let's make sure it's during normal daytime hours or comfortable hours. Let's make sure doing upholstery and painting, lacquer painting a vehicle is two different things. You can't control a paint shop in a neighborhood. I've lived this fight here year after year after year. I think many of you know the one that we're dealing with. And so that's why instead of all or nothing, we drill down and say, okay, let's say the things that are the least impactful to the neighborhood were good. Most impactful, I think paint shop in a garage is not gonna quite cut it because the smells, and just as much as marijuana, that skunk smell versus a lacquer paint smell. And then so make those kind of, do that and have council do the deep dive as you would if somebody brought that. You have wonderful people who are very conscientious of other people, and then you have people who parts everywhere, smells everywhere, no respect for other people's peace of mind, peace of quiet, and the look feel. I think that's why you need to kind of delve in and be more surgical on if you allow it in what manner or form.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I think that if we're gonna have a prohibited use, I'm okay with firearms manufacturing, storage, on-site sales, medical marijuana dispensaries. That shouldn't be in a neighborhood where kids are.
That's a hazard.
That should be in a brick or mortar. There should be regulated. There are things around that. So maybe that, I don't know what the rest of the council feels, but leave that as prohibited uses. But instead of a permitted use, we can have those, but then at the bottom have some language of this is not an exhaustive list and open to what this council has agreed upon. Zoning administrator is okay, but policy set forth by the council, and a clear pathway for them to understand that if they are denied by the zoning administrator, this is your option. You can go to council and appeal it. I think rather than having this huge prohibited use and not this verbiage of this is not an exhaustive list up there, it might, like Councilman Gonzalez said, it might now, I'm in my garage in the dead of night hiding from the public and doing whatever I want to do in my garage. And that leaves it open that we are not this big brother saying no to everything, that we want to be your partner. We want to come in. We want you to come in. We want you to build, and we want to do these things with you. And now it's opening the door to City Hall and saying, come in, let us help you. Let us figure out, we have an economic development team that'll help you and figure out if we can get you a brick and mortar rather than this.
I was going to kick it to Dana, because Dana, do you hear the conversation?
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
So items 10 and 6, B 10 to 6 analogous uses as above. I gotta say, in my 30 years, I can pretty much, and I always fit like what you know, explain it, because there's a lot of things that people wanna do, and it's really helpful to talk about those specific activities, because then we can get into, like, the auto repair. We can't get into, oh, that's hammering ball joints, spray, other banging or parts, things like that. So you can start to look at, oh, well, how would that be appropriate? You know, what could we do to allow somebody to do that? We can talk about that. But outside of that, you know, you really all the activities I'm aware of this license that have been approved to date from home occupations would fall under this list of permitted uses. So it's important to kind of just look at it, but we do have that flexibility as determined in both. So we're looking for, and you know, it's a science to look at and make a comparison of analogous uses and stuff like that. So the process is, if somebody says, you denied my something or other that it doesn't fit in one of these categories, prohibited or permitted, well, I would have to, if I were to deny something, it would fall under the prohibited uses, right? More so than the permitted uses. I need to say, well, that's very close to this use, so, all right, that's the best. And then their opportunity in the zoning code is to appeal that decision. And we could put extra appeal language in here as well, but the appealing to the Board of Adjustment is the mechanism to dispute zoning administrator's interpretation. And you could, like I said, come up with another safety valve that's a little different and say, go talk to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the people that do land use specifically, or city council, and then it gets appealed to city council. So there's other mechanisms that you can look at. There is something in place today, obviously. What I would suggest, though, based on this conversation, if you had a very more by the letter of the code zoning administrator, the current policy wouldn't allow most of the uses, or the current code wouldn't allow most of the uses.
That's a good point.
Secondary, including professional and semi-professional law. That's very narrow and strictly enforced. You're not allowing for much. So anyway, and like I said, that's one of the instances for the reason why this came forward. And then, so the next slide is just to dive into the daycare.
And Dana, I think Mayor
Dana,
has
I
a
got one question now, and I guess, and I think Jesse hit on some of the maybe timeframes that we look at that, but we also got to look at the noise, the nuisance of vehicles, because, you know, I'm a mechanic by trade also. And, you know, I don't do it for a business, but I think people, sometimes mechanics, when they start working, you know, late at night and leaving engines laying around the yard, tires and everything else, when it becomes an issue, a nuisance issue with not only the integrity of the residential area, then those are the things we need to address. We have people that have race cars and they're racing them, they're working on them at 10 o'clock at night. And what do you hear? You hear those race cars. So I think those are things we need to look at. I mean, just the normal small mechanic, I don't think we should punish them the same as somebody doing it, causing a nuisance in the community.
Yeah, if I could, instead of like this prohibited use and having a what is it called? It's having like performance metrics. So these, if you meet these performance metrics and you don't have this X amount of complaints over a certain amount of year, you can keep your business license. You can keep whatever you're doing. If you've now violated these, your neighbors are complaining, and it's been 3 of them within a year or 6 months, whatever it is, just like a conditional use does. Now that triggers this, where you've now lost it for whatever that time period may be, or you've paid a fine. And having that metrics there rather than this all-encompassing document here, and just really instead of performance standards, and it's because right now what we have is sounds good on paper, but actually in reality enforcing it is going to be hard. And I mean, unless your neighbor complains, and I think we leave it that way. If your neighbor complains and it's justified, then okay, it goes into it. You get a letter. Here's your letter. It's either a fine or whatever have you. And that way, they're good neighbors. We're still here helping drive economics, drive the city into what we want it to be, grow people into businesses.
It's gonna be a case-by-case situation.
Yeah.
Because I know a guy too, speaking of the mechanics, He's been working out of his little garage for years in a neighborhood, and he just does it for extra money. He's a, husband, wife, raising their kids. He has a good job, but he also is a great mechanic, and people go to him, and he works on their cars on the weekends or whatever, or in the evenings. And I would hate to go to him and say, well, you can't do that. And he's never had a complaint in his life.
That's right.
And then along with the baking thing, I was gonna bring that up, but I see that is number 8. So I saw today on Facebook, single mother, 4 children, she's selling cinnamon rolls and sourdough bread to make some extra bucks. Are we gonna say she can't do that because 10 people pulled up?
No, that's usage, number 8.
I know, but it's
It's allowed use.
an allowed use, so what's allowed though?
Yeah.
If she has 20 cars pulling up to pick up their baked goods, are we gonna say, no, you can't do that?
No, if people start complaining, we go out and investigate, say, oh, there are 20 cars pulling up here today. Okay, that's a lot of traffic. And somebody complained. So
But are we
now
having-
we documented it, we came with the auto repair guy, again, code enforcement reacted, in the situation. We don't know if somebody's violating code unless somebody violates this.
But right now, we're not having people complain about this, correct?
People don't, right, same, I don't see how that would change based on the existing code. People don't complain about, they'll only complain about their neighbor when they're annoyed at something. And if they start to attribute it, it's a repetitive situation that they attribute it to possible business, then they start to complain to the city. And then the city has to go out and do the metric, and what the code is. This is, and then if it happens again, that's how we do code compliance. It's not a heavy hand in any way, especially with respect to this, but that's just letting you know. I can't imagine much of anything changing. Besides, we allow instructional classes and daycares and things that the current code doesn't allow, but are still occurring in the community. That's my perspective.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's tough to balance. We're blessed with a fairly good group of people who are courteous to their neighbors and everything. But we know every once in a while you get somebody that moves in and they're not courteous, and then they come to the city and you're like, why can't we do something about that person? And it's because we didn't have that mechanism. So just because we have a mechanism to deal with people who are uncourteous doesn't mean that we're going to blanket that across everyone. And that's the nuance. This is a tough, because you're right. The best way to handle all of these is a case by case basis, but then that gets overburdensome too. So we're trying to. This is a tough issue.
I think the main thing, I'm sorry, I think the main things are safety and nuisance, noise, like safety would be firearms, medical marijuana, we know was a nightmare where it's at now. And kennels and dogs, people don't want to hear dogs all night barking in your backyard either.
That's right.
I hear it.
Yep, and I do too.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So.
Whole neighborhood of mine does it.
Yep.
You do.
So does mine.
Yeah,
And it's their pets.
right. I had that complaint today. Same thing, people with dogs barking all night long. So,
That's the business, right? And you can do something about it. And then there's obviously the nuisance stuff, but it is difficult for some nuisances.
This is all for discussion, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
you bet.
no motion.
All right.
Thank you, Dana.
All right, and we'll move on to daycare comparison. Existing code provisions in our ordinance, again, allow, I mentioned it in the prior slide, RL 43, that's like rural residential acre lots, which we don't have any zoning for, any property zoned in the community currently. They allow daycares, with, subject to a use permit, along with best practices. Daycare facilities subject to parking, signage, and related restrictions to maintain residential character. So even if this goes from 98, or a carryover, that's still one of those, that's that criteria again, that's applied for activities in residential neighborhoods. The TR district discussions, that's transitional residential, that allows for office use and things like that. Everything pretty much west of the broad street of US 60 is zone TR. So all those neighborhoods could basically operate an office. And those are where you have some of the more restrictive roadways, obviously this code wouldn't apply to that, but they do allow child care center, subject to the following. One, proof that the center meets all state and local life safety codes. So there was an acknowledgement, again, that is also one of those fundamental criteria for occupation. You're required to get all the licenses that are necessary to operate your activity. In the TR district, and then the NS, Neighborhood Services Zoning District, which again is a transitional district in between a commercial and a residential or multifamily zoning district typically, where they have access to a collector street, direct access, and they can maintain more traffic. You don't have, it's not a neighborhood necessarily that you're trying to protect other residents. It's a transitional area where you expect more traffic, more business activity, things like that. So it allows permitted uses, beauty shops, daycare of less than 10 people, and other analogous service-oriented uses. Or with an approved conditional use permit, a child care center, subject to the following, again, proof that the center meets all state and local life safety codes. So at present, outside of the other commercial districts, C2 and C3, these are the only districts that provide for child care, daycare types of activities, as I explained here. So the proposed language is this. The daycare of more than 4 children and up to 10 requires an approved conditional use permit. So you can watch 4 kids all day long that are not your own children, in addition to your own children, all day long. Great. Childcare of no more than 4 children under the age of 12, excluding independence of the occupant, does not require zoning clearance. That's basically what I just said. Daycare of more than 10 children, excluding dependents of the occupant, is not permitted as a home occupation. And a lot of this language is consistent with the statutory DHS and DES criteria, with some nuance, but for the most part, I did provide you. I think Exhibit C in your packet are the state of Arizona child care licensing criteria. If you want to do it in your house, that's their criteria. And there's a couple different approvals. I am aware of one resident that operates, they have a license. And under DES, they're allowed 4 children, plus a couple more that are subsidized, from what I understand. And so that's that allowance. Now, if that type of business came in for approval after a code like this was adopted, it would require a use permit. And then in that situation, you're able to look at, okay, where is it? Is it in a location where 10 people dropping off their kid in the morning and picking up in the evening could be, next to other daycares or something like that, could start to create, or other business activity, home occupations could start to cause a problem. Okay, let's look at that. And again, that's how you start to regulate it. And that statutory requirement has a number of other checks and balances, including fire or inspections, annual inspections, and certain fire code exit requirements, pool safety type of criteria, and other regulations.
Dana, I got a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I talked to several daycares, and one of them has a certificate, DES that has it. They're allowed 4 compensated kids to be under their care, but they're also allowed an additional 2 that are uncompensated. So how are we restricting them to 4 when they're allowed to have 6? They know they're not getting compensated for the other 2, but now we're saying they can't have 6, but the DES certificate says they can.
You could change that 4 to 6. But we know that DES and if you refer to Exhibit C, it explains the statutory requirements. And it basically says anything over 4 they're required to take this license. And it's from 4 to 10, and that's, they cap, or from 5 to 10, and that's where they cap it. So yes, that is a nuance. I'd say if for some reason or somehow that license was issued, great, it would be legal non-conforming. If it wasn't, you just need to get a use permit and say, hey, I live in a location that doesn't have traffic, and we're good, we've been doing this for however long, and, PNC put improvement. PNC denies them, it gets appealed to city council.
But now we'd have to require them to have a CUP then.
Over the 5, from 5 to 10, yes, then it's capped at 10. Again, and that's because the state regulation in your packet, Exhibit C, explain the state's criteria. So yeah, you could just say we allow 10. We won't see that in most other codes. I didn't come across that. They usually draw a line at like 4 or 5, because they know the statute has extra, additional requirements to be licensed.
Go ahead.
Does this daycare provision apply to group homes for adults as well?
No, you have a separate code that you adopted about 2 or 3 years ago that's state mandated for group homes.
And aren't group homes, they're not under, certified under DES, they're certified under DHS then?
Correct. I don't know all the details of that. I'm sure DES does some enforcement arm of some of the DHS stuff, but this is way outside of my area of expertise. So statute for group homes, there's a limitation on the number, definitely not more than 10. I think it's like 6 or 8 residents in a group home, and they cannot be closer than 1,200 feet to one another. I'm familiar with some scenarios where people bought more than one house on the same neighborhood, in the same neighborhood, because of affordability, and converted them to group homes. So the state adopted statutes. There are other issues going on with group homes, but the state adopted statutes to start to not allow for that concentration in one neighborhood. We know that's not that good. That will start to change the character of that neighborhood, essentially. Other things, but yeah. And this proposed language also would then be inserted, not this, all this language is a reference that home occupations are permitted, or daycare in this situation. I think that's the only one. Home occupations, including daycare, permitted for that section that we saw on the last page in the R19, R16, and R2 districts. So then provide a legal avenue to have that activity based on today's code in a single family zoning district or multifamily. So that's it. Yeah, happy to continue to discuss or receive direction and dig into any of these topics.
Any questions for Dana?
No.
I think I'm done.
Yeah, I think it's said everything I just said.
So we're gonna bring this back, right?
Yeah, this is only
This is
discussion
just-
and for recommendation for us to look at. Obviously, there's some things to look at in here for the future, and then we open the public hearing, but I don't know, for me, I think that there's some questions on some of them. I think 5 and 6 needs to be dealt with into deeper, and I think that's something that hopefully my recommendation is exclude 5 and 6 on this round, so we can discuss this further and understand it better.
Yep.
But that's just mine, but we'll open that. And then does council want to comment now or after the public hearing? I'll leave it up to you.
Comment after the public.
After
After the
public
public
hearing.
hearing?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
public hearing.
Mayor, if I could, you brought up a great point. We didn't really dive into the instructional class ordinance or section. If we could just touch on that, like you just reminded me, we need to dig into this, and I'll just give you the background on that. Like I said, it's pretty much, let me go really find it. There, instructional classes not exceeding 5 students at any one time for home occupations with more than 1 class per day. The site location shall be no closer than 600 feet to another instructional class. We're saying, back to that topic we just discussed, group homes, if you have a use that has a lot of traffic, you want to start to separate them in the neighborhood. You know, ideally the business is right on an arterial road, where you don't have to separate them, you want to consolidate. But anyway, in a home occupation situation, start to separate them, just like the group home ordinance and statute. The site location should be no closer than 600 feet to another instructional class, home occupation structure or home occupation structure, group home or similar home-based use with a separation requirement. So any other uses that you have, there are a few others that have a separation requirement. You start to separate those so you don't have a concentration of certain activities on one block. That might have an impact on the properties that on that block. In no event shall an instructional class generate more than 24 total daily trips to the residence. So this is the only time where we really say, wow, let's allow basically 4 times a single family residential trip demand to an activity. It's exceptional. I haven't seen another code like this anywhere. But the idea is, we have people that want to instruct. We have people that want to do swimming lessons or teach people, not a daycare with educational academic activities, an actual instructional class with people showing up. More than 1 class per day, we would allow them up to 24 daily trips. So that's like 3 or 4 classes, so 5, which is pretty exceptional. Like I said, I challenge you to find a less restrictive code anywhere, or anything even close. So that's it. Thank you.
But 2 different things, Dana, because childcare is dropping them off and then leaving, they're not having traffic. When you're doing, say, instructional swimming and you're doing students, they're taking up the public parking within the neighborhood. And so it's 2 different things. They're not, daycare is not taking up parking. These instructional, and now we're allowing 5 students for instructional, and we're only allowing 4 for daycare.
Yeah, it's an exceptional portion of this code.
So I have a comment along that too. What you said there, if say somebody's giving music lessons, they're dropping the kids off. They're not staying.
But if
So
you're
it's
doing
just
swim
along the
instruction.
same thing. The parents don't stay for that.
And Mr. Mayor, members
Maybe
of
like
council,
a quilting class or something.
but it could be adult instruction where you have,
Well, right.
so they
I'm
drive
thinking
themselves.
more of children though. Because we had a home in my neighborhood where this was years ago, but the lady taught piano. I bet you guys remember that house up on East Street, big old white house, and taught piano every day after school. I don't know how many kids she had there, but she had a lot of them there.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think the 24 came out of the fact that some instructional will have 4 or 5 in a class, but they may have 4 different classes a day. So it's a 2-hour class. So if you have your 4 people at a 2-hour class, you're locked in. You have the rest of the day that you can't have any more students. So I believe that's why the trip total went up on that. So for these instructional people, they can have different sessions.
And what does daycare require, or what's the restriction on that daily? Is there a restriction on it?
Oh, that'd be a Dana.
Right on top there, number 5, no, it just mirrors the statute
It says
for
daycare,
what requires a license.
daycare of more than 10 children.
So, if I could, what
Or an additionally second tier, more difficult license
would
requirement.
stop a daycare provider from saying they're an instructional class if they have the kids there 5 hours each time and they have 6 classes a day? It would be an instructional class and not a daycare provider at that point.
Or education, well, same thing, yeah, education.
Could be.
Yeah, that's how you break it down.
And and one of the providers that I talked to, they have a 24-hour DES, so they could do it 24 hours a day,
They do daycare or instruction?
daycare.
Daycare.
24 hours a day, okay.
So what happens to people?
Yeah,
that are emergency-
overnight activities, that's one thing, but there's a different regulation, it's group homes, or they call it different, if people are staying.
If they're an emergency placement for
Period. Long
DCS, and they have now 7 kids in their home because they're an emergency placement. So at midnight, DCS comes to somebody's home, the kids are removed, and at midnight, they're dropping off 7 kids. And that those 7 kids are staying there. They are not an instructional class, they're not a daycare, they're an emergency provider for DCS.
Dana, did you hear that question?
No, I didn't hear the beginning of the question.
I'm not sure of the,
So an emergency placement for DCS, they get 7 kids dropped off at midnight. They're not a daycare, they're not an instructional class, but they have 7 kids. And those 7 kids get placed the next day, taken somewhere else, and then they get 7 more kids the next day. What happens then? Are they supposed to get a business license? Are they not supposed to get a business license? They're getting compensated by the state.
I don't know if they need a business license, but, yeah, it's
They're certified
being
by the state, right?
a state activity, I would say, under state law and a license by the state, you know, the state can
Sheriff's gonna be good.
do things that
The chief might understand this question more.
Dana, Chief Walters might have a thought on this. He appears to.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Your specific question, that's foster care. It's not daycare.
Correct.
And because it's emergency foster care, having been a foster parent and took on 4 kids all at once, that's a common practice. Unless you start getting complaints or something, and even if you did get complaints, I'm not sure there's much that we're gonna do about it. That's a state operation, and it's uncommon to have it night after night after night after night, but it does happen, and it's on occasion. So I think that's not relevant to the home businesses discussion that you're having. Where it would become relevant is if you had someone that was wanting to do a group home or something like that. But something like what you're talking about, it's a foster care issue, and I don't know that there's anything that we would actually be able to do about that one way or another. It's emergency placement for displaced children. So,
Understood. I just don't want to get them into the weeds of this.
yeah, and I don't think you would. I think it would be more of a, if there became a problem or something like that, that would just be a discussion that I would probably end up, or someone that works for me would end up working with them in DCS and to try to come to a resolution to it, but it's not a zoning issue, I don't believe. It's no different than if your own kids came.
Sure.
Type of thing. They kind of treat it like they're now family
They're
for
your family
24
at that
families or
point.
whatever for that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, chief.
The other question, I guess, is too, and I guess when we open the public hearing, we have cards here for people to speak, is, I guess, what do you do with a regulated daycare home and a non-regulated? I mean, if they're regulated, they're certified through the state and everything, they get inspected, their home does. But if you have people just doing it, who monitors that? I mean, there's safety issues along with that too.
So Dana, do you want to take that? You want me to?
We're not supposed to be doing it.
Go right ahead, Paul.
Okay, so this kind of overlaps into another conversation that wasn't agendized tonight. But I would say in that scenario, a daycare with a business license is going to, and our current business license asks us, are you in compliance with state, federal, local, county, health department? And we have people, we're moving towards where the people will attest to that and sign saying, yes, I'm in compliance. And so we would not be going out and enforcing daycare health inspection, anything like that. But the only time we would be involved is if there was a violation that was brought to our attention, and a credible violation, not just an accusation, but a violation. And then we would approach it as to someone gave incorrect information on a business license, and that would invalidate the business license because you said that you were square with the law and you're not. And so we deal with it on the business license end of that. But so then that forces them to get right with the law, and then they go take care of their business. But again, that we need to ask that question, and we take people at their word. But if we find that they're not at their word, then that's when we deal with the business license aspect.
Okay. Fernando, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the regulations from the state though clearly state that anything 4 or under is unregulated.
Unregulated.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's unregulated, so it's
Unregulated.
not regulated until they hit 5, and that's, does not include their own children.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grandkids or otherwise.
Good. So we ready to open the public hearing?
I'm good.
Just for the people in the audience, if you want to speak, please fill out a speak card, then that's only for our records, for our clerk to keep track of who's speaking and everything. I only have one card up here, so if you are willing to speak or comment, please fill one out, and we give you the opportunity to speak, because we have questions for you also. So.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, speaking at the item is not a 3-minute limitation.
No, it's
It
not.
is a back and forth conversation.
Yep. Good. So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing right now. And I have the first card up here is Kiana Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. My name is Kiana Thompson. I'm here tonight as a mother whose 4-year-old child is directly impacted by Ordinance 894. Under this ordinance, my child's preschool schedule is being reduced from 4 days per week to 2 days per week, with longer instructional blocks. That may sound minor on paper. It's not minor for a 4-year-old. Early childhood education is built on consistency, repetition, and short instructional periods. Research consistently shows that young children thrive with frequent, shorter sessions, not compressed schedules. Attention spans at this age average just minutes per activity. Learning at this stage depends on repetition across days, not endurance in longer blocks. Reducing access from 4 days to 2 is not a neutral administrative adjustment. It fundamentally alters how children receive early education. Zoning authority traditionally governs land use, traffic, parking, structural impact, neighborhood compatibility. It does not govern curriculum structure or how often children may attend preschool. By limiting the frequency of attendance, the city is no longer regulating land use, it's regulating educational structure. That distinction matters. Arizona law limits municipal authority over home-based businesses unless there is demonstrated congestion or substantial traffic impact. If there are traffic concerns, they can be addressed through conditional use review, traffic mitigation, or enforcement of existing traffic laws. Those tools exist already. What should not happen is reducing educational access as a substitute for traffic management. I would also respectfully ask, who enforces this scheduling restriction? What metrics determine compliance? What due process protections exist for preschool providers? These are not small questions. Preschool is not simply a home occupation, it's a foundational education. At 4 years old, brain development is rapid and highly sensitive to consistency. When we compress access, we're not adjusting a business model, we're shaping developmental outcomes. I'm respectfully asking this council to exempt preschool programs from the scheduling restrictions imposed by Ordinance 894, or at minimum, pause implementation and reevaluate its impact on early childhood education. We can protect neighborhoods without restricting children's access to education. Thank you for your time.
Questions? Yeah. Go ahead, Jesse.
I'm confused as to where you read that we're restricting the days that preschool could be in effect.
So because of the ordinance, specifically your section 14-6-11, and then the B6 that we've all been discussing tonight, those 24 total daily trips have limited now to what the instructor can provide, and has broken her previous schedule. So from going from, I believe it was the 5 children every 2 hours, so you're getting 5, 10, 15, 20 vehicles to her house, that had to now be limited. Now we're dropped to, my child is going 2 days a week for 3.5 hours at a time. And that's where that break is from.
So she dropped one of her classes
Yeah,
because of this?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. She dropped 2 classes in a week and can now only go twice a week. Asking that for my 4-year-old to understand that schedule it's heartbreaking. She's not understanding why she can't see her friends and why she can't learn. She's having fun learning. That's what this age is for right now. And that's now being taken away from us.
So you're saying that the limit of the day trips is gonna limit the classes that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
and it is now.
Okay.
So she limits it to 5 students at a time and then does 6.
Now it's only 2 classes a day to limit to that traffic of the back and forth with each student, is twice for one student, is now dropped 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, there's your 20. Yeah,
And that's our current code?
No, the code right now does not limit that. She's.
it's a potential, right?
She's preemptively doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mayor, council members, so in that, I'm pretty sure that individual would have a daycare, a DES, DHS daycare license probably, and that, I think it's.
But she's not licensed as a daycare, she's licensed as a preschool.
Preschool.
She's not licensed as a
The
daycare.
first things first.
Interesting. Yeah, so if it's strictly that and not daycare at all, you gotta look at that. But instructional classes, it sounds like that would permit it, right? Number 6 on the screen.
Not exceeding 5 students.
But is there, some type of verbiage to clarify 24 total daily trips? Maybe there's something that's not being clear with our current provider that, hey, this isn't 25 total back and forth. It can be 24 collectively, I guess, or something.
That's what it is. Daily trips is to and from.
So that's limited to just the 12 children a day. So again, that dropped, right?
No, trips total.
So one trip is
So
back
that would
and
allow
forth.
24
Okay.
people
So
to
she's
go to
counting
that
two.
So
house.
one trip is back and
on that
forth
day.
Okay.
for one
one.
person. So she's
Okay.
got
24
times-
kids
24
a day.
times can go back and forth.
Okay.
Trips round trip.
So
Maybe something
before
to
peak,
better
if you're thinking about
verbiage
one,
of that.
Yeah.
Like clarification, a daily trip is back and forth of 1,
that-
equal to
that
1.
counts as one trip.
Yeah,
Round trip is one, yeah.
Good.
That's good to know, thank you.
okay.
And that would
Thank-
satisfy going from 2 classes back up to 4.
Yes, absolutely.
And that 4 was the original.
The 4 has been, as far as I have been living in this town, and utilized her for, my mother utilized her. Yeah,
Okay.
That's interesting. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sure.
That's a good ask. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. We have Pam Shobach.
Wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but I came up with more questions, so I'm sorry. I'm Pam Troba. I live on Railroad Court. So I don't think the preschool program should be instructional classes because daycare is educational. Unless you have somebody just sitting children in front of a TV all day. And then I have a problem with that. Because I do work with childcare providers throughout Gila County. I deal with health and safety issues throughout of that. So I am helping Quality First programs improve, and they are all regulated. So I don't think those preschool programs should have to worry about instructional classes. They should be under daycare. But then again, if we do that, so she's unregulated, I would love for her to get regulated so I could work with her, but she's wonderful. And there's several really good programs that are not regulated, and they are doing preschool, an AM and a PM class, or many more. And I think, now that I'm thinking about it, so my question is, a daycare, regulated, DHS, and like the one we've been talking about who is up to 6, she is regulated under DES, and that is a family child care provider. And their regulations are under Article 52, you can look it up online. It's a lot like DHS, but it is a smaller family home. And So are we saying that she is following the rules, but now she needs to come get a conditional use permit as well? Is that what we're telling her? Because that's a stumbling block for wonderful providers who are doing, you know, providing care in their home for kids. They are teaching their kids at a young age, whether it's an infant or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, they are teaching them, hopefully, right? But you're just put another stumbling block. If we are now saying they have to come get a conditional use permit that I understand is $500, and it is a pain in the rear end to get regulated with the state of Arizona. Been there, done that. It's good, but it is a lot of regulation. You have a lot of inspections just to get started, and then you have regulations and inspections every year, and there's paperwork every month. So there is a lot that they go through. So why are we telling them, oh, by the way, now you also need to get a conditional use permit, because we need to make sure that traffic-wise, right, the traffic and parking would apply to them, right? So now they could only have so many trips. And if you have the one that is regulated, she has 6 kids in an AM class and a PM class. You know, so that's 12 trips in a day if you're doing daily trips. So we are in a desert. We do not have regulated childcare here in this town. And I think you're just putting another step and another roadblock. And I'd love to have conversations about that, because I think we need to change that. But those preschool programs, they're not instructional classes. I disagree with that. So, cool. Any questions?
Pam, so you're saying the 4 restriction, what's the allowable when you're saying that we're restricted? Is it 6 now? Or is it,
Well,
because the one I saw was 6.
Right, so DES, the Family Child Care Provider regulations, they're regulated by DES. And those, because she can have 4 for compensation and 2 that are basically scholarship, she's not getting paid for them, so that's where the 6 comes in. And that Article 52 does address that, because I went back and I was like, why does she get 6? And I do read that, that's why. DHS, the ADHS that is part of your packet, is for child care group homes and centers. So group homes are in a home, but it's more kids, up to 10 kids. DES is just for that family child care provider, you know, very small amount of kids that they have. But they are not instructional classes.
And group homes, DHS under DS, do they require more than one attendant, one instructor?
It depends on how many they have for those ratios. Yeah, it depends on how many kids they have in their care.
What's the max you could have?
Group homes, I believe it is up to 10. Centers, you know, of course, centers can have a lot more depending on how many classes they have and employees. But then you're looking at like Head Start or Upper Rim or Miami School District. Those are centers.
And isn't the ratio 1 to 5? If you have more than 5, then you have to have 2 adults, or?
It actually depends on the age of the kids.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, the older kids, you can have more of them. I have seen classrooms, I don't know how those dear teachers handle it in a center with that many kids, but they do, so.
Question on, when you say 4 compensated, 2 non-compensated, that doesn't include their kids, though.
Right.
So it could be,
Could be 8.
Yeah, I believe so. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the
No,
regulations in front of me.
Well, everything you read says that your own kids are excluded, so.
Yes, right.
Any more questions for Pam? I got one more, but I can't.
So you're not arguing that the preschool isn't teaching them, you're saying that it shouldn't be considered
It shouldn't be.
instructional, because
Yeah.
it's not like they're bringing cars and parking them there
No.
while they're in class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I got you.
unless you want to pull those preschool programs out, you know, but here again, they're daycare, and daycares are instructional, if you want to call that, you know, an all-day family home provider they are teaching children, the youngest ones. And we want that, you know, it's part of your strategic action plan, right, is childcare. So I think we need to do a better job at making that easier. Not unregulated, not, you know, social site sitters. I need a babysitter tomorrow, but we need to make it a little easier so that we can get more kids into a quality program and affordable.
We definitely have a shortage of it in our community.
We do.
We're definitely a desert, yeah.
The only thing I comment, I have 2 group homes in my neighborhood. I have one daycare. They're not complaints or concerns on the daycare. Who would monitor that? They're concerned that they park on both sides of the street and have to walk their kids across. Would it be something more safer if they turned around and parked in front of the house and left them off on that side? Is that monitored by the daycare? Because I
By
don't
the
think it's us doing it.
state, by state licensing, there are some, I'm not sure, honestly. I mean, that would be a concern, but I am not sure if that is part of like licensing, going out and doing an inspection. They do look at like a playground and can a car come crashing through into a playground? They look at that kind of stuff. I'm not sure about, drop off and stuff like that.
Because in a cul-de-sac, I don't think it'd be a safety issue, but if you're on a main thoroughbred, Main Street,
Right,
going both directions, that could be, crossing
right.
on there.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
No other cards? Chief, you want to comment?
Mayor, Council, thank you, and my apologies, I have not had a chance to talk to Dana or look at the actual ordinances and things, but I have several concerns. The first concern, or the first thing I want to state is I'm a big fan of home-based businesses. I had a bed and breakfast when I was a deputy up in Page. My wife raises chickens and I raise beef, and so I get it, and I get some of the challenges with it. The problem is I want to make sure that we adhere to the fact that it's not just the business that has a concern here, it's the businesses that are talking today, but there's other residents there. If I pay $450,000 to move into Councilmember Rios' neighborhood in a nice house, I don't necessarily want a home-based business next to me that's tearing down motors in the driveway until 10 o'clock at night. So there's some concerns with that. The second thing is this community it's not the valley. It's incredibly dangerous on some of the roads that we have. Like, we don't necessarily want a daycare up on 4th Street because of just the narrowness of the road and the steepness of the grade and things like that. So whatever we do, I'm in support of it, but I would like to make sure that there's some things in place that it's not just a blanket yes. We go out and evaluate, and it should not be a blanket no to Councilman Leeson's statement earlier, but it shouldn't be a blanket yes either. We have to consider the need for the other residents and what their concerns are and things like that. We have to go out and evaluate some of these. If it's going to be a daycare or home-based business that's going to have a lot of deliveries or a lot of traffic in and out of it for whatever reason, does the road and the neighborhood actually adhere to allowing that to happen? The reason I bring this up, if we don't front load this, then what happens is it's not zoning that gets involved, it's me. And I would rather not be involved with those. So if we can front load this where we're doing our due diligence to making sure that whatever the business is going to fit within the neighborhood, and there's already an infrastructure there that supports that, that's fine. For some of the businesses that were brought up today that have been here historically, I've been here for 8 years this year, I've gotten no complaints on it. I mean, there's no underlying issue for it. That should be something that we take in consideration as we move forward. Do I firmly believe that we need to address the archaic zoning laws that this community has? Yeah. It needs to be addressed, and I think council is doing its due diligence in doing so. And I think all the questions that I've heard tonight really go to that fact that you're concerned overall of everybody's welfare within the community. I would just ask that whatever ordinance that we have, we put something in front load, we do proper inspections to make sure it meets the criteria that we're going for. It's going to alleviate problems moving forward. Second thing is, I would give serious consideration to home-based businesses that have been here for years that should be somewhat grandfathered in. We have zero complaints on them, we have zero issues, and to go backwards on them when they've been conducting business the way they have successfully for as long as they have. I'm just looking down the road where we're not having that type of conflict, because that then impacts us.
Good point, Chief. I think it's just us, you know, and it's a difficult, this, because you're trying to balance it all out, but you do have areas that are more dangerous than other areas to have a lot of traffic, especially when you're loading and unloading.
You were the fire chief for here a number of years. You retired as a firefighter. You know more so than anybody else in this room how dangerous and narrow some of the areas. We have issues right now in the neighborhood that has a very narrow road that I'm not sure, but I think the person has an unlicensed junkyard that has leaked off into the road and is going to block the road, and we're dealing with that right now. You have that happen, and it does happen. So I think a site visit should go along with when we start permitting this to make sure that it is what it is. My brother has a home-based business up in upstate New York. He's a coffee, he roasts coffee, and it's really good coffee. It's called Chatty Wren Coffee. It's on the internet, just saying. But he's very conscious of the fact that, you know, when he does his deliveries, he does deliveries of coffee, pallets of hundreds of pounds of beans at a time, once a month. And he's very conscious of when he does it and things like that. Other than the traffic of him and his one employee roasting coffee, it's just him and his wife transporting it to the shows or doing deliveries, or they're shipping it from someplace else. They're not getting a bunch of traffic in the neighborhood where they're at. Most of the HOAs and things that are developed down the valley, which I think are somewhat problematic for particularly me and my brethren from Globe, they were built that way because things went unchecked. And we need to consider that moving forward, because there's other people in the neighborhoods that live there. That's their castle too. And if we're impacting them negatively by allowing one person to do something, that's a problem. And that translates to calls for service and stuff for us. And that's just my thought. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of home-based business. I want them to be successful. This community was kind of based on that for 100 and some years. But we do have to make some adjustments to make it fair. And I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence up front before we okay something or anything to make sure that it fits. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you very much.
Totally agree, Chief. And I think they did that with, and this is off subject real quick, is Airbnbs. What they did in these communities that brought these Airbnbs into these neighborhoods, and now they're destroying the neighborhoods. They're partying, they're destroying their property. I mean, and now they're fighting, and now they're trying to pass bills to restrict them with these Airbnbs that are all over.
If you
Not
go
in our community, I haven't heard anything, but in the city, other cities I have heard.
Pine and Strawberry, last year I spent a lot of time or 2 years ago, I spent a lot of time up in Payson. That was a big topic of discussion. It's taken over communities, and it's driven the housing prices out of control, where the people that actually work and live in the community full time can't afford to live. And then it brings a lot of problems into the community because of what they're doing. It's a great idea, but when investors come in and buy blocks of homes at a time and stuff like that, it becomes very problematic. So it went unchecked. Again, this body, this council is doing the right thing to try to put some guardrails up to make sure that we're fair and equitable, and we're looking at everybody's needs within the community. I just ask, from my standpoint, if we can front load some of this stuff when we start going through the review process, that zoning's clear on what they need, and maybe we can go out and do some site inspections and stuff too, to help out. My biggest concern is it's a 120-year-old mining community, and the roads were built for carriages and horses, not heavy traffic in some of the older parts of the town. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other comments or where are we at?
Thank God it's only for discussion.
Thank you, Mike, pointing that out.
My
Appreciate
counsel?
it.
And we thank you for your input. It really helps us out to understand, and really, I think we need to speak to you, the ones that actually do it, and how we come out with a fair process and safe process for your businesses and for our community. We thank you very much. Any other? Item B is a public hearing, discussion, and possible direction only no action on the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to Globe City Council on Ordinance 895, a zoning code text amendment to clarify the minimum parking lot paving standards and to provide alternate parking lot surfacing criteria for site-specific conditions. Case number ZTA 2502. Shelley, can you write ordinance 895? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, before you proceed, did we need to close
Oh,
discussion?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, and Mr. Mayor, I'd like to close the public hearing for the home care or home businesses, and then receive any direction or finalize or quantify where we go from here.
Okay, so we're gonna close the public hearing under home business. What's the recommendation we wanna move forward with?
Yeah, what direction do you want to give? You had spoken about peeling 5 and 6 out for a separate discussion.
Right.
Is that something that this body would like to do, or are you good with 5 and 6 right now as they are? And so what the direction would be, to back up a little bit, to take this code and prepare it for a hearing in 2 weeks in whatever fashion the modifications you want to make. If you wanted to tweak 4 to 5, just as an example, on the number of kids or anything like that. So we can bring it back just as it is for approval. We can ask Dana to make some minor changes. We can't do wholesale changes because of the law, but I think we're talking about minor tweaks on this. And then the decision is, do you want to deal with is it 4 or 5 or 5 and 6? 5 and 6 again in 2 weeks, or do you want to go back and do a deeper dive and a deeper process?
Just my comment, like I said earlier, is I think we need to spend more time on it and dig deeper into it. Obviously, the input from these individuals was vital. I wouldn't want to rush at 5, and I don't mind looking at the other ones and passing them through to the following week, but as far as 5 and 6, I'd like to work on it a little more. What do you think?
Go ahead.
So the thing that really stood out to me was the conditional use permit, and it's $500.
Yeah. Is it really $500?
And a long process.
Yeah.
Because they're already regulated by the state. So to me, I'm thinking if they're regulated by the state and the state says they're okay,
Why are we?
why are we butting in?
Yeah.
And is this for 5 and 6 you're talking about?
The
5.
CUP
Okay.
that they need to get.
5 and 6, I guess.
Yeah. And that would be, again, that if you carve out 5 and 6 and give direction to hold those out of what we bring back in 2 weeks, leave 5 and 6, and we can look at, because we want to increase daycare. We want to see more daycare. Daycare is an economic development issue. Daycare is something that we want to support and encourage and lower those barriers. So I think the discussion would be around that. How do we make sure that our code not only supports what activity is going on, but encourages others to enter into the process? Right. And that's why I think, Mayor, where you're going with looking at 5 and 6 as pull that out, not talk about it in 2 weeks, and then we can go back and have a more detailed discussion, more comprehensive discussion. But that would leave the rest of the code, the other ones that we would bring back, and if there's any changes you'd like to make to those other ones, now would be the time to discuss that, so we can have it fit your needs, your desires, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm pro-child education. I've got several things in my life going on right now where it's vital that a child have as much
Support.
She brought the term up, a daily routine. And if you change that routine, then the child is left wondering. That's the word. We shouldn't stand in that way. And whatever we need to do to make that happen and support it is what I'm all for. So they need some tweaking on that, and we should take a hard look at that.
Okay.
So I'm all for that.
Jesse?
I don't think we're far apart in the intent of what we're doing, the rigidity of what we're doing. I think that's what I have a problem with. And I think that, I don't want a policy that just blatantly says no to residents who aren't causing any problems. They haven't been causing any problems. Yeah, there are no complaints that we can show that are causing problems. Our job is to protect the neighborhoods, protect your neighbors, but also leave room for people to be able to work and build something from their homes. So making a code that protects residents without closing their doors for the residents that are doing something within their homes. So with that stated as the prohibited use, I think I said it before, and making sure that it's not an exhaustive list, that this is what's prohibited, but this is not exhaustive. Anything could be be okayed, but this is just a list of what we have currently. And I think that firearms and medical marijuana, I'm okay with it. I don't know what the rest of the council is, but that being prohibited use inside of a neighborhood.
Right.
But otherwise, from that point, anything else could be okayed. And it's just like Chief said, and we've all said, these roads are very small. Just making sure that it's not going to cause a nuance inside of your neighborhood. It doesn't take away from the neighborhood's finesse, if you will. It continues to stay a neighborhood. I don't see why we're limiting one versus another, 24 versus 10, and getting into that. I think it should just be a blanket. This is how many. This is 24 trips a day. That's it. That's what you get. And if you want more, then you come for a conditional use permit. And at that point, then the zoning administrator can say, well, 24 is a lot, but what do you need more for? And do your neighbors agree? So, I mean, even downtown, if we want to block off downtown, we ask that the neighbors get the surrounding businesses okay and make sure they are okay with it. Well, then if you want to go more than 24, you need to get your neighbor's permission to say that you're not causing a problem. We've asked that for businesses many times. So why are we going to do something different? I think it's just crazy to say this one can have this, but this one can have that. And we're getting into like a business manual versus a zoning code. And so I think that just having a blanket, this is where we're at. Don't cause a problem within your community. Keep it complaint based. This is where we're at. And then having teeth to enforce that, such as, okay, for the first infraction, this is what your fine would be. For the second would be this. For the third, your business license is gone. And gone for how long? Is it gone for a year? Is it gone for 2? Is it, when do you get your business license back? Have you corrected the issues? And so having it something like that, I think that goes into what this council has always done, and we want to grow our economy. We want people to come up. We want startups to happen, and we don't want to be seen as a council that says no. And we're prohibiting this, and we're taking a hard stance and saying, no, you can't have that dog. You can't take your shears and cut your dog's hair, and you can't tinker with your neighbor's automobile over here. But having it, all business activities should cease at a reasonable hour, and having that inside of there rather than the performance-based metrics. And so then you can say, okay, you are complaining about a business in your neighborhood. Have they done it something at 10 o'clock at night? Okay, they have. There's performance-based metrics that we can show.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Councilman Lethem, what I'm hearing, and I'm just going to take a stab at this. I think that what I'm hearing is that we'd like to carve 5 and 6 out, separate those, come back, and have a more comprehensive look. And then I would ask that we've gotten a lot of input through the past hour and a half. Let us take a stab at those issues of prohibited uses and how to thread that needle. And we have the tape, we can look back, we know what we've heard, and then let us try to put together something that is more in liking to what we've heard tonight. Bring it back in 2 weeks, and we'll look at it and see if we're close. Okay. And so,
No,
go ahead.
I think something that Chief Walters said kind of struck me, and I think that is some form of grandfathered in, because we've had people that have been running businesses for a long time. The few I can think of are not actually in the city limits, but there's a daycare, and I know it's a residential area, but it's an acre and a half. They're not bothering anybody. People come in, the kids, I'm like, okay, so why? That would make sense to me. I know another gentleman who has like 5 acres. He has a huge metal building. He works on cars up there. He's not bothering nobody.
Leave him alone.
So, and so to me, that's,
Please.
and I understand that we want to have some form of ability to solve a problem, and we need to make sure we create that ability.
Yeah.
But to butt in when it's not needed or required, and we're not helping anybody, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Good.
I agree.
I agree.
So, and Mr. Mayor, members of council, and to Councilman Shipley, I think from the start, both P and Z and council has looked to say, if things are working well and the neighborhoods are happy, our goal is harmony in the neighborhood. And so those, just by the nature, have been doing well. And I think we've designed our code around that we don't go step into somebody who was legal one day, just like what we sorted out here with 24. I would ask Dana to change the wording from trips to round trips, and that's going to clear up. Another thing I know I've heard is the 600-foot for instructional care. And I know there are two daycares, primarily daycares, that are our neighbors, and they were concerned, which they would, but again, it's the nuance between daycare and instructional. And so the 600-foot requirement instructional would have no effect on those two neighboring daycares that have been operating historically peacefully with no problem whatsoever. So I think we've gotten a lot of feedback. We will take that and like I say, put it together into something that is more in line with what you're looking for, and then go back to the conversation.
Good. Yep.
Okay. So I think 1 and 2, we agree that we definitely are against those. 3 is one with some.
5 though, it says grooming of animals. How
Yeah.
many people are grooming dogs in neighborhoods? I know a bunch.
Should
So
that
they're
even-
not allowed to do that?
No,
is
it'd be prohibited at this point if we pass this. That's why I said I don't think that we need
We're
to.
gonna look at 5.
Okay.
3, 4, and 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of,
Yeah, I can think of one right off the bat.
So can I.
Bet you can.
Bet you can, Paul.
I know several of them that are doing
Yeah,
that.
there's like several, and then we have one that goes around to your house, and
Yeah.
she'll just block up a whole road. She don't care.
Good. So we're gonna look at the.
God, I'd hate to,
So,
I'd hate
yeah,
to
so
see
now
no
I
dogs
have
in
my
the community.
direction. We have direction from council to staff for us to make, to address the issues brought up tonight and bring back something that is more closely aligned with what we've heard tonight.
See, I bet none of this happens in Apache Junction, right?
That's another thing.
Now, there's a city.
Dana, anything you want to add before we move on off of this?
Yeah.
No, sounds good, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
So he's not going anywhere. He's got the
Yeah, he's
next
got
one.
the next one. And Paul, as we move forward with 5 and 6 and we move it down the road, I think the expertise of the individuals we heard or more, that we include those comments, because they're the ones that really do it. They know about it, we don't.
Well, and maybe what we can do when we come back on this is have a thumbnail of a process.
Okay.
So to bring forward to you.
Okay.
Got all confidence in the world.
Okay, read item B already. Shelley, can you read ordinance 895, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 895, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Globe, Arizona, amending section 14-7-3C2 of the zoning code to clarify the minimum parking lot paving standards and provide alternative parking lot servicing criteria for various site conditions such as use, location, traffic volume, vehicle types, drainage, and other site-specific considerations. Is council pleased with that reading?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mayor, council members. Similarly to the last agenda item, Planning and Zoning Commission was hearing a CUP request about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, and directed staff to go research opportunities for alternative paving services as an alternative to what our current code specifies. That was that. I'll quickly take you through this, an older presentation, but it really summarizes the big picture. We really dug in deep, and I learned more about paving than I ever thought I would. But for the most part, I'll just try and summarize and move through this quickly. Purpose of the presentation was to explore alternative parking and lot paving options for Globe. and to explain to you the ordinance. It's basically how we resulted in the ordinance that you have before you. It's not related to any single property. Changes to the code apply to all properties in the city. And then we wanted to identify what types of, or what we learned was identify the types of uses, activities that require certain different types of surfacing and why. So our current code requires all commercial parking lots to have pavement designed by a professional engineer or meet a certain specification, including asphalt, a subgrade, AV subgrade, and then a compacted surface underneath that. It's kind of a typical engineering detail or standard. The city engineer then reviews and approves that parking lot surface, proposed parking lot surfacing. And the city engineer utilizes recognized design specifications and product manuals, and just obviously this is not a new thing in the world, and there are definitely guideline standards for paving surfaces. Our current code does specify 2.5 ton vehicles or less, though requiring a typical thickness of asphalt aggregate base in the proposed code, and that's that detail I just mentioned that our current code specifies. And then it also has a provision, like most codes we researched, or as otherwise approved by a city engineer. Right? There's been a lot of other technologies that have developed over the years in different ways in different applications, depending on the use, the drainage, whether or not it's in a floodplain, whether or not it's high use or low use or truck use, things like that, and is it accessing a major arterial roadway or business district, that type of high volume type of land use. So all those things are considered. Trips per day are one of the big criteria that are looked at, and the type of vehicle weight. Particularly if it's for emergency access, we know that vehicles have to have all-weather access and a pavement that withstands a certain load, could be 80,000 pounds, stuff like that. So anyway, the city engineer does have the flexibility to consider alternatives. Through this process, we recognize it would be necessary to help identify alternative types of pavings and general criteria that might warrant their application. So we quickly went through paving, parking lot paving surfaces. That concrete is the most resilient. We did pros and cons, asphalt, so next best. You'll always see usually in urban areas concrete in front of trash enclosures because of the weight of the pickup. Trash collection with pickup would deteriorate that asphalt and start to rut it very quickly. Things like that are we've got ADA access. Do we need to get a wheelchair across this? Is this ADA accessible route? So forth. Obviously gravel can't do that. Rough surfaces like chip seal and things like that aren't always the best. What can be striped? We know gravel can't really be striped and maintained if it's in a high use area or a medium use area. Chip seal can in this situation. Permeable pavers is an example that we've seen. It's the structural design and the detail involved, and not necessarily much cheaper than a regular asphalt surface, but it does offer percolation if it's in a high flood zone, an area that needs to percolate more and provide less runoff into the roadways and so forth. And then finally, we did see gravel could be used in areas like overflow parking, yards, things like that, that can be maintained on a periodic basis by the company that obviously owns it, stuff like that. And maintain weeds and all the other things that go along with gravel parking lots. And most importantly, keep that material out of the road. Having tracking material or having material, dirt, gravel wash into the roadway that ultimately ends up either creating compromising the surface for maneuvering and stopping and so forth, as well as the sidewalk for pedestrians access or ADA access, things like that. And then ultimately it can start to impact or create sediment in our stormwater system, our drainage structures, so forth. So with that, we did look at alternatives, like I mentioned. Ultimately, though, the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission was to insert the language that's before you in your zoning code. We basically modified it to kind of break out and be more specific to this criteria that I'm explaining to you, to be evaluated by the city engineer, by the design professional designing the parking lot, or the person that wants to pave the parking lot, just so they understand what's involved, what kind of criteria is looked at, and allow them to make good judgment on what's appropriate in a certain application. The one thing we did recognize and realize is obviously a convenience store type of use or a quick serve restaurant, something with really high use off the highway is not a place for gravel. It's just it's a maintenance issue, long term, let alone or short term, let alone the instability of the surface for ADA, our flood control needs, things like that. So. They also asked that we point out there are a lot of additional criteria that was provided by the city engineer for those different types of applications, gravel, pavers, chip seal, things like that, and there's structural design manuals that are just generally accepted methodology for laying those. He asked that we have that referenced, and I thought, well, the zoning code is not the best place to reference that, but the city really, the city has a number of transportation design standards, roadway classifications for the different arterial, collector, local roadway details, things like that, curb, gutter, landscape, all that fun stuff. And landscape's a little less involved with it, and drainage. Landscape's less involved with the civil standards. So anyway, that said, we should consolidate all of those adopted standards today, generally MAG standard details, in a single document, including the paving methodology and options and standard design manual references that the city engineer uses to evaluate applications for paving services. So with that, that is the bulk of that's the language that you have before you in your packet under ordinance number 895. Planning and Zoning Commission, again, similarly to the prior agenda item, had all very similar meetings. They kind of ran parallel, and many times both were discussed at the same meeting. Similar advertisement, same advertisement, if you will, again, they're all kind of figured too in some ways. So with that, I'd be happy to bring up the language if you'd like to dig into the details, or let me know how you'd like to.
Dana?
Yes.
Dana, let me, I just wanted to back up just a smidge. We had like I say, parking lots had been a discussion point, but I think in sitting through the P&Z meetings, I think P&Z wanted to, on a higher level, give residents and investors and people who are doing construction in City Globe alternatives that are available somewhere other than concrete and asphalt. So you have the gravel that's engineered and has the geotech holding, that you have the different types of permeable stuff to allow the water to go in. So so we need more ground absorbing water so it doesn't end up in the creek. And just different things like that. And I think that's what has come forward, is a pretty good menu of options, so that anybody building or investing, developing in Globe can look at our code and say, I have options, I can pick what looks. You saw the pictures of very beautiful places using alternatives materials. And so we're expanding over concrete and asphalt.
Fernando?
There is another pro though to pavers, is that they're considered personal property and they're not taxed.
The what?
Pavers, they're not taxed because they're considered personal property, because you can take them with you when you leave.
But those are allowable.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
allowable. But I mean, that might be something for them to know, because if you improve your parking lot with concrete or asphalt, it increases the value of the property.
Okay. Interesting. Jesse?
I don't have anything other than just a comment. I just want to thank planning and zoning and staff for everything they've done. That, you know, we went from a code with no options to many options, and it, you know, and it took many meetings for this to happen. So I appreciate everything planning and zoning staff has done for this.
Well, thank you.
Just a question, does it address, if they're in a floodplain, flood zone, does that address it? If that parking lot are any of these allowable then, even if it's in a?
Well, it has to be engineered, and so the engineer takes into account the location and the flow. Dana, I don't know if you want to help me with this, but they need to make sure that it drains. Most locations have to provide for on-site drainage and off-site drainage. So the water that, if you take water and capture it and won't let it absorb into the dirt, you have to have a place for that water to go so you don't put it on your neighbor. And that's the requirement of having a civil engineer look at these things and make sure that you're not negatively impacting your neighbors and making sure that it's gonna work.
Okay, because I think we all have nightmares from September still, so.
Oh, yeah.
How do we move forward with parking lots?
Yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I did a lot of note-taking the week after what survived as far as our infrastructure is concerned. And things were tough, but the cement and the pavement, even though they were floodways for a while, they survived. And that was a lesson I took away. We wish we had better ordinances before the flood, but now's the time to design them so that they will, in another catastrophic, do the job that I saw, and that they directed back into the channel. Of course, there was a lot of damage. It didn't matter what was in the floodway, it was channeling water, and it was destroying some of our bridges and some of ADOT's pavement and ADOT's bridges. But overall, the integrity was still there, and the proof was in the pudding the next day after inspections were conducted. So it behooves us to get a handle on future development of parking lots, that they can survive and drain as needed. There were some that did not drain as well. The Elks parking lot is a really good example. We were lucky that that parking lot didn't wash away. We're very fortunate.
We've noticed that.
Yes, we've had discussions. We'll get back to you on that, mister. And the point being that we need that high standard. And we're not flat lands like the Valley or Safford. We are our own entity stuck in these hills. And we need to enforce and design and engineer accordingly if we are to survive and move on. But there was infrastructure that survived. The parking lots that survived, they were engineered. And the shining example is right over there, the new building going in across the Circle K.
Thank you.
It was built at a high elevation, it survived. There's no damage to that particular building. And the parking lot was just paved a couple of days ago. So it's designed accordingly, an engineer took charge of that, and that's why we need this type of ordinance to be ready for that future flood. There will be another one, but I can't tell you when. Stay tuned. But the point being, we survived, and the engineering that was in place helped us an awful lot. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before I open the public hearing? Okay, we'll open a public hearing. Do we have any comments or? I don't think we have any in the audience, but online.
Nothing online, nothing on the phone.
Text.
And no one in the audience.
Any comments?
And we've had multiple meetings on this. Dana didn't go through the list of, but this has been vetted probably 5 times.
So this will move forward to the next.
Yeah.
Yes, because of the promise, no action tonight.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing.
Okay, and so it appears to me that council is comfortable with this. We will move it forward, prepare it for final approval, and bring it forward as presented in 2 weeks.
Okay. So we have item C, consideration to ratify.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you all very much.
Item C is consideration to ratify federal assistance grant application GF 26610581 with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, Emergency Watershed Protection Program, EWP, for an amount of $24,774,458, which includes a City of Globe match of $5,429,230. Paul.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, our staff has been on top of making sure that our applications are timely, that are complete, that we're submitting everything. I think we had over 100 different projects submitted in this. We've talked about this a lot. Due to the timeline, we needed to get this submitted and signed, so I signed on behalf of the city. Tonight, we're asking you to ratify that submission for us. It does, like I say, we are looking at a $24 million contract. We have 220 days that has already started ticking, but we made great progress. We have the engineer underway. I think Eric gave you sheets on the number of people who we've already got signed forward on the right of entry. Now, that's not construction, that's right of entry. Not everybody may need a construction. So, but we're starting that, and that process has gone well. We've had nothing but support from everyone. It's been wonderful working with the members of the public who just understand, and they're like, yeah, let me look at it and I'll get it back to you, and they are doing that. So this will get the first 3 million is the engineering, and that is covered at 100%. The 21 million is for the construction, and that is covered at 75-25. And that reflects the 5.429 match. Like I say, we have many areas where we're looking as to where to get that match, and we will have more information as we go forward. We're no stone unturned. We have options, but I don't have a strong presentation tonight on how we're going to make that match. But we will 3 things. We'll find the money. We may value engineer this, so we don't need to spend all 24, which may lower the cost of the project. Or if push comes to shove, we'll limit the project so to match what we have as a match. But we will go forward with this, and we will. We've had to start on this. If we wait to figure out where the money's at, we're going to miss the window. If we wait to see where the money's coming from the match, we won't need it. So we learned that, and again, I want to say how helpful Gila County, their staff, and DEMA, they've been working with us real close. Everybody has really pulled together, Miami too. So we're acting as a unit in these things, and we're sticking together, and I think it's going to pay off in the end.
If we get the federal designation, it goes to a 90-10 then, it'd be 10% instead of the
Correct.
25%?
Correct.
Okay. And if we run out of time and we don't do all of it, does that, I mean, how do we judge that? I mean, if we don't get to a point where we spend all that?
Then the money goes back to the government, and we will have to complete that under a different contract and or different funding. So I don't see that as an option, but we have to have a balanced budget. We can't spend money we don't have. And like I say, we'll start, we'll look at everything.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple things. This is a huge project. I want you to be sure, and your staff has been doing this, don't get me wrong, they have been very conscientious. I want to be sure that upfront, all the federal agencies are on board with the NRCS. I need to say that because I hear rumors that this agency doesn't approve or that agency doesn't approve of what we're doing. Please leave no stone unturned in getting the federal buy-in from all federal agencies. I'm not talking DEMA, I'm talking federal. There are many players in this act that we are doing, and any one of them could possibly put a stop, and we don't have time to go to court. My concern is that we get this project done and that we deliver it, and that we do it with the concurrence of the federal agencies. Is that clear, sir?
And I will tell you
That's all I
that
got, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, to Councilman Gonzalez's question, we are in good communication with everyone, and it's being coordinated. If there is a fair question, do we qualify or not? And that's something that FEMA will have to do. They had an opinion, we appealed that, we believe we are getting a very fair shake, and we are putting our cards on the table. The shutdown hasn't helped much, so that may slow it down a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, we will be treated right. And like I say, there's, the NRCS is independent of that. That is happening now, and no matter what happens with FEMA, it does matter on the match, but the work's gonna be there. So we are working with our organizations, and we are all on the same page, and we hope the numbers balance out, and they see that it does hit their threshold that they require. And I think they will.
Hope
That's
so
all
too.
I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate the staff's work.
Any other comments? Should we have a motion for,
Make a motion to ratify the federal assisted grant application GS 266105-081 with USDA NRCS EWP for an amount of $24,774,458, which includes the City of Globe match of $5,429,230.
Second.
we have a motion and a second for approval of item 5C. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Item 6 is action items, none. Late agenda items, none.
No late agenda items.
Second call to the public.
See here, let me check real quick. Nope.
No, Mr. Mayor.
None. Scheduling of meetings.
I think we're good there.
Are we gonna reschedule a meeting and, that'll be next
Oh,
month.
let's determine that. I think we're going to push the second meeting in
March
March
meeting.
back
Okay.
1 week to the last week in March because of scheduling a DC trip to lobby for support for our flood. So,
Okay, future agenda items? Anybody have any?
like I say, we will be bringing back both of the text amendments and a plan to how we'll a process for looking at daycare and instructional changes. And there's more detail to it. I don't know, you're working on something that also ties into P and Z, so we'll have to get together with Dana and with our attorney, with Bill Sim, to make sure we got a process that's will complement that.
Okay. We got a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
So second?
Second.
Motion second to go into E-session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Mayor, there'll be no action taken when we return from E-session, just adjournment.
Thank you for attending. We appreciate it. One of those?